Welcome to the Mojo for Musicians podcast from Manny Cabo Media, where we dig deep into today's top strategies to help you take your music career to the next level, along with real, raw, and uplifting conversations with industry professionals that are making moves, making a difference, and making the best versions of themselves to inspire you to do the same. And for all of our Mojo Maniacs out there, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you like what you hear, please be sure to give us a positive review on your favorite listening platform. Support for the Mojo for Musicians podcast comes from Stedman, tools for the studio and beyond, because your voice deserves to be heard. Sennheiser, inspired by music. And Cranium, scientifically designed products for bald, shaved, and buzzed heads. So get your head in the game and own your dome. And now, here's your host, Manny Cabo. All right, welcome back, Mojo Maniacs, to another episode of your source of inspiration for my creative community of artists. And always giving much thanks and gratitude to my sponsors at Stedman and Sennheiser and Westone Audio, Grundorf Cases, Rockwell Watches, and of course, you guys for sustaining this multifaceted, crazy career of mine. Because let's face it, without you guys, I couldn't be doing what I'm doing. So thank you. And man, I don't even know where to begin. Episode 71 is definitely bringing the heat with one of my fellow Jersey rock stars who has undoubtedly made a robust name and brand for himself as the founder of the band Trixter, who, as many of you know, set incredible accolades back in the 80s, ranging from 3 Billboard Top 100 singles, 3 #1 MTV video selections, and never mind playing alongside of some of the best iconic performers the rock world has to offer. I mean, we're talking the likes of Kiss, Def Leppard, Journey, Scorpion, Poison, just simply way too damn many to name on this show. And he's even made his own way into the bright lights of Broadway. That's right, making waves, ripping chords on the hit musical Rock of Ages. But, you know, in all honesty, guys, and I say this with all earnestness, the reason why I love this guy, aside from his endorsements from, the late Eddie Van Halen and his recent successful line of SBS guitars, as you're going to see, he's sporting his own swag, because you got to believe in yourself, right? And most recently, working with the one and only Ace Frehley of Kiss on his latest album, which so far I've heard has been nothing short of iconic sounding. But in all my years of being in this industry, I've never met such a down-to-earth dude, who shares the same sentiments as I do about getting along and being courteous, professional, and appreciating the journey of the grind with gratitude, as I call it, right? And I love his gestures right now. And believe you me, guys, that's tough to find. So let's welcome to the show my dear friend, the one and only Steve Brown. What's up, Steve? Welcome to Mojo for Musicians, brother.
Manny, great to be here. Hello, everybody out there on the worldwide intraweb. I'm honored and humbled to be here with also, Manny, you forgot, my Wizards of Winter bandmate.
I was going to get to that.
My core mate.
That's right. I was going to get to that. Dude, it's been over a month since we shared this stage. So it's so good to see your mug, brother. It truly is.
Likewise, dude. Likewise. And
yeah, what was it? The last time I saw you was at Busch Gardens with, of course, our Wizards family. But again, man, listen, I know we've been planning this for a minute because I know what you're about. And I knew you wanted to strategically wait until the craziness with Ace's album was under control and your personal and your touring, because you're all over the place.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you taking time out of your hectic itinerary, to say the least, to share your journeys and your wisdom with my listeners, my man.
Well, thanks for having me. And, as always, I miss you, dude. And soon enough, we will be back wizarding before you know it. But
these months go by quick.
Thanks again
brother.
for having me on the show. It's a very exciting time. Always busy. Yeah. Look, man, 40 plus years in this business, and I still love every minute of it. Nice. Whether it's making records, playing live, or doing an interview with the likes of yourself, that's what it's all about. Yeah. And if you want to be in this business, you better like everything, whether it's, shitty hotel food or subpar hotel rooms and airlines and late nights and early flights. You better get used to it.
And he's being very kind, people. He's being really kind.
Of course. Because no matter what, man, I love it all. I love every aspect of it.
I think that's a great mindset to have, and you really do have to adopt some thick skin, because this industry, if you don't have it, will definitely force you to grow some thick skin. And I got to tell you, Steve,
This interview, for me anyway, is going to be a tough one because there are a myriad of questions pertaining to your career, as an artist, just because you have a lot of layers to what we do as artists, and so many accolades that you've amassed, you having a reservoir of insights to share is just an understatement, I have to say. So I tried to narrow it down to 3 very specific questions for you that touches on the different sides of Steve, the artist, the entrepreneur, and producer, if you will. So I want to kick things off as a consummate artist, right, with over 30 plus years of experience, like you just alluded to. Mm-hmm. What key lessons have you learned throughout your career that you believe are essential for aspiring musicians to not only sustain, but to thrive in today's industry? And how similar or relevant is it today as compared to your past 30-year tenure? Because it's pretty evident that you've been able to adapt to the modern-day music world with fluidity, brother. And I might add, as I've seen anyway, or am I wrong? Perhaps you're at your wit's end, cursing up in storm. I don't see it, but talk to me about that.
No. Well, man, here it all started back when I was a kid. When I started playing guitar in 1978, Ace Frehley and Eddie Van Halen were the 2 guys that got me going. Kiss, Rock and Roll Over, and Van Halen 1, 1978. Set me on my rock and roll adventure of a lifetime that I'm still on and enjoying every minute of it. Instantly, it was in my blood. Like, it was the thing that, you find, where people say when you find your passion, you know it. Sure. I found it very early on. And I also grew up in a very athletic family. My father was a, semi-pro baseball player before he became a, high school principal and an educator and a coach. My older brother was an all-century baseball and football player for Paramus. My middle brother was a championship equestrian rider. So there was always competition, and there was always that you're going to win. And my father gave me great advice that I still use to this day. And all he said in the nicest possible way was, whatever you do in life, do the best you can and be the best you can. So that's all I've ever tried to do with anything that I've ever done, whether it's playing guitar, singing, songwriting. And I think when you do that and throw in the mix that you love it, I love it. Yeah. That's always been my thing, that I think anybody who's known me, since I was a little kid, it was undeniable that this is what I was going to do for my career, because I loved it so much, and I did, when I was a little kid, I did play sports like yourself. We were both athletes. But I learned really early on that probably in about 8th grade, I go, you know what? I don't think I'm going to be 6'3" and 230 pounds. So I don't think I'm going to be a shortstop. Well, I was lefty, so I don't think I'm going to be a center field in the major leagues. I'm certainly not going to be a running back for the New York Giants. That took sports out of the equation. But, with that being said, again, I just loved every aspect of it. And it wasn't just reading Circus and Hit Parader magazine and Rock Scene.
Although that was essentially part of it, though, you got to admit.
It was.
Right.
But, the thing about it was, besides playing music and writing songs, I was also infatuated with the business of it. And that subconsciously was the Kiss influence, the Gene Simmons, Kiss and Sell. Yeah. And when I started Trixter, I knew in the back of my mind, what is going to be the gimmick? And it was Circus Magazine, reading about Def Leppard in 1980, where I read that Rick Allen was 16 years old when he joined Def Leppard. That was the light bulb moment for me, where I go, that's it. That's going to be my gimmick. I'm going to have the youngest hard rock band. We're going to jump higher. We're going to play faster. We're going to be louder, everything that youth. And that, enthusiasm was Trixter. Yeah. And that's how it all began. And, I'm happy to say, after all these years, again, like I said, I started Trixter almost 40 years ago.
That's crazy.
July of 1984 is when we officially became Trixter. So, happy to say 40 years now, and I'm still playing some of the songs, and doing what I love to do.
Well, you're doing your whole acoustic thing across the country as well, which
We
I'm going to
are.
see you. I'm going to see you. I think it's in June here at the Debonair Hall, correct?
Yes, Debonair Music
It's gonna
Hall
be great.
in
I'll
May.
see you.
But we're going to be, it's not going to be Trixter Acoustic. It's Trixter Electric, because we just started doing some shows. We opened up for Mr. Big last week up in Rome, New York.
I saw that.
And I told PJ, I said, man, we're not doing the acoustic thing, man. I want to play electric and rip it out. So we've been doing this now, and we did it on the Chris Jericho cruise as well. So
that's badass.
Again, it's just after all these years to still be playing, Give It to Me Good, One in a Million, the Trixter classics, and some of the cover songs and PJ songs, again, just blessed 100 times over. And again, loving every minute of it.
You are definitely, you are like me, man. And again, just like you strategize, perfectly timing, your showcase on the show, I strategically plan, because this show is all about empowering and entertaining and inspiring.
Sure.
And there's got to be a certain mindset that needs to be across the board. And like you said, you got to put up with a lot of shit. But at the same time, you have to take the good with the bad. And technically, I don't even see it as good as bad. It just is. It's how we interpret the situation. And in all fairness to you, brother, I grew up just like you. We were privy to the best era in absolute music. I'm not talking just rock, R&B, disco. We had everything on the planet, so the influences evidently were there. So I understand you, and I empathize fully with you when you said you had the likes of Eddie Van Halen and Kiss. These guys are monsters, and you would sit there enthralled and enveloped in the showmanship. And that's another element that, for me, over the years, I've seen it decline, I guess because we were so spoiled. Back in the day, you really had to have chops. I don't care if you were a singer, a bass player, drummer, guitar player. If you didn't have licks, don't show up on stage. So I can see that in you, and when we perform together, I love that visceral energy with the crowd, and you're jumping, and you're doing the classic Van Halen. I know, Eddie, you're making him proud with those moves. But I get it, brother. I truly do, and I appreciate that because, yes, there has to be a certain mindset to even sustain or to have remote success in this industry. And you've done it in leaps and bounds as an artist, as an entertainer, as a guitar player, which I'm going to get into other segments of you right now. But go ahead, man. Finish your last statement.
Well, no, again, you're saying it all. Again, I'm a big believer, again, be the best you can be and do the best you can at all times. And that's what I do. And that, dude. Look, we all know whether you're playing in a cover band or you're playing for me, whether I'm playing with Def Leppard, whether I'm playing with the Wizards of Winter or Trixter, look, every night is not 10,000 people.
100%.
But my attitude has always been, wherever I play, whether it's, again, a big show, little show, medium, I give the best that I can be. And that's one of the most important things that you can always, that you should share with everyone, is to always be your best. And especially for the people who've never had success, like what we're doing here, trying to influence and give people advice here, empower people. No matter what size show you're doing, always be your best. And especially the smallest ones, when you least expect it, could be that one time, that 1 in a million, no pun intended,
Full pun intended.
That 1 in a million chance that a Mr. or Mrs. Bigwig could be out in the audience and say, hey, I watched your show. You blew me away. Here's my card. And the next thing you know, it could be the president of Spotify, the president of Warner Brothers Records. You never know. So,
well, I've had that happen to me, Steve. That's the reason why I'm letting you elaborate on that. I've got so many shows because we showed up on a Wednesday night at the Continental during a blizzard, right? And we rocked it out, man. Like when you're leaving on the stage. Because of that, we got the next prime slots on the Friday night in New York City. The Continental, how great it was. Some of the most iconic performers.
Man, I love that place.
Right? So, and we got some incredible gigs. Why? Because we showed up. Because we did the best possible job that we could.
Mm-hmm.
And, my dad, just like your dad, unfortunately, I lost my dad to COVID years ago. He always used to tell me, don't do shit. If you're going to just entertaining people half-ass, just don't do it, because it's disrespectful to yourself and it's a disservice to your audience. And man, that always stuck with me.
For sure.
You know, as an entertainer.
That's right.
But listen, man, like I said, man, this is a tough one because there's so many questions that I want to ask you. But let's move on. Let's transition, into your production, right? And I want you to share, please, be as thorough as possible. I want you to share some behind-the-scenes insights, or better yet, some memorable moments from the studio while working with Ace, right? Because you're working with him. And how did those experiences shape the final product? Because from a personal standpoint, sometimes it's tough, teaching an old dog new tricks. So there has to be a significant element of trust. And sometimes that could be a daunting task. So is there some truth to that and your experiences?
Oh, without question. I mean, look, you're always, as a producer, and we're in my studio now. This is my studio, the Mojo Vegas 6160.
I love it.
Always been a dream of mine. And I became a producer and engineer as soon as Trixter started making the first record. I fell in love with making records. I wanted to learn everything about engineering. I wanted to learn about mastering, producing. Why do you do this? And I was always asking questions. When I was a kid, I was so inspired by guitar players and bands. But as soon as we started making records, I became obsessed with Bruce Fairbairn, Mutt Lange, Bob Rock. I wanted to be those guys. Butch Vig, you know what I mean? And why, we were able to make records. And the biggest thing for me was I was always let down by people that I worked with, in a sense, to where it never was what I heard in my head. And I got great advice from, Eddie Van Halen, my old dear friend, and God bless him, and I miss him, and we all miss him.
We lost him way too
But
soon.
long story short was, he told me was, that he built 5150, him and Alex, they wanted 5150 because they didn't want anybody controlling them when and how they could make music. They wanted to be in control. And so that's why he built 5150. So when I bought this house 30 plus years ago, my first order of business was to build a studio. And what was funny about it was, when I saw Eddie probably a week after I moved into this house and I started building this studio, Maz and I from 40 Foot Ringo, and my guitar player, who was a great contractor, him and I built this with our hands, a lot like Eddie and Alex built 5150 with their hands. But long story short, I saw him at a gig and I told him, and he goes, "Oh, you're building a studio?" And I go, "Yeah, man." I go, "You have 5150. I have 6160 now. I want my own place." And he goes, "What does 6160 mean?" I go, "I have no idea, but it sounds really cool."
But it sounds cool.
And, but it was all about, for me, control. I never wanted an engineer ever again to say to me, "Dude, you can't do this." I would always be like, "Why don't the drums sound this way? Why doesn't the guitar?" And they go, "Oh, well, give me a bunch of reasons. Oh, you don't have enough 10K on this mic."
Sure.
And I'm like, I don't want to fucking hear it. I'm going to learn how to control. And that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I could give to anybody. Control every part of your career. What you wear on stage, what you look like, if you can engineer and produce. I tell every young musician I meet, learn Pro Tools, learn Logic, learn how to make your own records and record. Not only will you save thousands of dollars, but you will also be able to learn something that you could do for the rest of your life and never have to rely on other people to record and make your music. So with that being said, it's been 30 years that I've been a producer. We've made a bunch of Trixter records here. We've stereo Fallout, Soap, Throwing Rocks, 40 Foot Ringo, PJ Farley solo records. And it's just, it's something, it becomes a part of you that it's like, I love live performing. That live performance is such a huge part of my life. But as much as I love live performance, I love being in the studio. So
yeah, I agree with you. And it's not even coming from a standpoint of arrogance. It's just the lack of knowledge from other people that almost kind of coerces you, because you're like, dude, this sounds like shit. I know my music.
Yes, of course. And you've been there. You know what it's like, and you know what it's like when you
100%.
go, when you hear your stuff. I remember when I was a little kid, man, it was always that constant. I mean, granted, back in the 80s, we didn't have that technology. There were very few guys who could get, a Def Leppard sounding record on a
Yeah,
Fostex 4-track, if you will.
of
But
course.
it served its purpose later on. But fast forward to 2021, my other band, Tokyo Motor Fist, with Ted
Yeah,
Poley and Greg Smith and Chuck
Ted
Berge,
Foley, yeah.
we got to do some opening shows for Ace Frehley. And so Ace, again, like I said before, Ace, I've had a long relationship with the Kiss guys. Trixter toured with Kiss in 1992 on the Revenge tour. It's been an unbelievable fairy tale relationship, if you will, because I know them all. Gene, Paul, Bruce, knew Eric Carr back in the day, Peter, Ace. So it's just for an 8-year-old kid, I still have to sometimes pinch myself. But long story short,
I know, I can
a
imagine.
bunch of the people in Ace's camp, my good buddy Phil Dealey, who used to work for Trixter, John Astronomy, and most importantly, Ace's fiance, Lara, who is a girl that she's from Cliffside Park. That PJ and I, we grew up together. She was part of the 80s scene. I'm sure you met her back in the day too. But
It's like a family, man. It's what it is. You guys are like a family. You're not even
yeah, it
competing.
is. And man, I talk about the Jersey mentality, brotherhood, sisterhood. We're all always looking out for each other, much different than the LA scene. But fast forward, we did these shows, and all of a sudden just got to be like, Steve, you and Ace need to start working together. And I was like, I would love to. John Astronomy and everybody in Ace's camp were really big fans of Tokyo Motor Fist. We did these shows with them, and they were like, this is awesome. You and Ace have to work together. So I started what I normally do, whatever artist I work with. If I'm going to do co-writing, I'm working with Corey Marks, a great country artist right now, who's on Better Noise. And when you know this, Manny, when you work with a specific artist, you got to bring in ideas that are going to fit their style. So what I did is in my studio, I came down here and worked up some ideas, and I go, as a huge Ace Frehley Kiss fan, what would I want to hear in 2021, 22, from Ace? And I came up with 5 or 6 great ideas, and the beauty with Pro Tools or Logic, whatever you have, there's no such thing as a demo anymore because everything gets used. It's like making a stew. I tell people all the
It's
time,
incredible, right? Yeah.
making records is like making sausage. You take
Yeah.
all the ingredients, but with digital recording, if you get a great guitar part from day one, it's usable. So that's always the way I work with everything. So I sent Ace a couple of these ideas, and the first one was this song that became the second single off the record, "Walking on the Moon," which was the launch pad for
Which
everything.
I love, man.
And it was called something else, but it had the line in it, a tagline, "Walking on the Moon." And Ace was, so finally, after 6 months, he finally called me. And it was funny as hell because I just got out of the shower. I was dripping wet, and all of a sudden my phone rings, and I see Paul Frehley,
of course.
because that's Ace's real name is Paul. And I see Paul Frehley, and I go, holy shit, I guess he must have finally listened to what we, been talking
That's
about.
great.
And Ace gets, we get on the phone. I go, Ace, what's up, man? And he goes, Steve, these ideas, and with Ace's accent, Steve,
Right.
these ideas are great.
Exactly.
This song, he goes, I got an idea already, and we got to call it "Walking on the Moon." The record's going to be "Walking on the Moon." This is great. Can you come over? And meanwhile, dude, I am soaking wet. I got a towel wrapped around me. I don't even know if I had a towel wrapped around
It's
me.
like that scene from a movie where you're like,
Yeah,
you're like looking
totally.
away, and you're like,
Totally.
Exactly.
It was all that. It was totally a scene. It was a scene from the Idol Maker or Spinal Tap all wrapped up in one.
But then you had to keep it together.
Yeah.
Like, it's like no big deal. Of course.
But again, and like I said, I've known Ace a long time. We're bros and a lot of friends in
course.
common. So it was very easy. So he goes, when can you come over? And I go, I'll be over Tuesday. And I kid you not, I got over there, and within 2 hours, we had 98% of what you hear on the finished 10,000 volts record of "Walking on the Moon." Ace got up,
believe it.
cut 4 vocals. I was sitting, he has a studio much like mine, same Focusrite interface, Pro Tools. So I would sit here at the engineering, like at the mouse engineering, and Ace was back here with the vocal mic. And I would just
Right.
yell back, sing, girl, you set my soul. I'm screwing up the words, but you got me walking on. And we would go line for line, and I cut together 4 vocal takes. And basically, that's what wound up on the record. And that proceeded to go on once every couple weeks. We would get together. And then probably 2 months into it, we got to 10,000 Volts, the song, which I co-wrote with a kid up from Buffalo, David Julian. And I brought it over to Ace. And by the time we got done with that song, because, Manny, just so you know, every time we worked together, within an hour or two, we pretty much had a new song done. And it was really inspiring because, like we said, Ace he was 71 years old at the time that we started the record. We were like teenagers. We were like kids, and whether it was you and me, just so excited. We were making music, we were high-fiving each other and laughing, and it was so refreshing because, dude, listen, man, I've been a fan for so long, but I've been so underwhelmed by his records over the last 30 years. There are always moments, whether it's the Frehley's Comet or
I was just about to say the Frehley's Comet was decent.
Yeah, there's moments. There are moments, but there's a lot of, let's say, filler. And I don't want to badmouth anybody, but Ace and I had a chemistry from day one that just kept getting more powerful each song. And by the time we finished 10,000 Volts and another song, which is going to be the new single that's coming out any day now, Cherry Medicine, we looked at each other and we just said to each other, this is undeniable. We are on track to make the best record you have made since your 78 solo record. And what you were talking about before, trust, that is the key thing. And that was after the first day. I grabbed Ace by the shoulders and I said, dude, just look at me in the eyes. And I told him, I said, bro, if you trust me and I trust you, I promise you we will make the best record you've made since your 78 solo record. And, at this point, I honestly believe we did that, and both of us and everybody at the label, Monarch Heavy, everybody has agreed that this is his best work to date since 78. So it's mission accomplished. And,
I love the cuts. As soon as I heard 10,000 Volts, it brought me back to yesteryear, to those great, big, solid rock and roll riffs that are timeless.
Sure.
And you and I both know, man, a timeless song is great. I don't care what decade you're in. I'm still listening to the Hollies. I'm still listening to Elvis. I'm still listening to the classic because a good song is timeless, man. So kudos to you, man, because what you're putting out there thus far, these first 2 cuts have been epic. So
I thought I had the label send you the record, but I'll get you the full record. So before this airs, you could do like your own review of it. But
I would love to. I would be honored. Are you kidding me?
And that was one of the other most important things that Ace and I said. Ace said right from the beginning, he goes, I want every song to be great. And I said, well, you came to the right person because I'm not going to let, and this, we've talked about this, whether it's working with somebody like Ace or whether I'm working with a new up and coming artist like this young kid that I'm working
Doesn't
with,
matter.
Kobe Reese, who I got Kobe coming in next week to do 2 more songs. I tell everybody, price, money, what I'm getting paid makes no difference. When you come to me to work, I promise you that chances are, whatever we come out with out of the studio and that I'm involved with, chances are it's going to be the best thing you've ever done.
Awesome.
And because I won't let it out. And just like working on this, I'm working on mixing and, taking care of the new Wizards of Winter, the pay-per-view special. I mean, the PBS special.
Can't wait for that. The PBS special.
And we're going to put out this live record. We're going to use some of the tracks, most of the tracks from this. And like I told Scott and Sharon, I will not let anything out of here if it doesn't have my stamp of approval that this is the best it could possibly be. So that's really, that's the common, I think, thread. And that for all your listeners and viewers, that is the most important thing. Because, look, if you give 200% to everything you do, you can't lose.
Yeah. Well, you know what? At that point, it's just, for me, it's always been huge. It's at the top, forefront. It's integrity, brother. Like I said, if you're going to do a shit job, just don't do it. like you, so many times I've recorded, which is why you can't see it. It's off to my left. I've got my personal vocal booth.
Yeah.
If I don't like my vocals, I'll go in there. It's not enough compression. I'll put more compression. There's not enough verb on there. It's not wet enough. I'll add a little bit wetness.
Yep.
But I'm going to walk out there knowing that I left it all on the table. I am not the whole woulda, shoulda, coulda type of guy. I don't live in regrets. I left it all. I'm happy with it. Now we move on to the next track, and it becomes a level of integrity, man, 100%. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, brother. I really do. I want to move on to this third question because this has to do with the entrepreneurial side of Steve, you know, in the launching of your new, which evidenced by your swag that you're wearing, launching of the new brand, the new SBS guitar lines. Now, by no stretch, okay, Steve, there it is. By no stretch am I a guitar player, nor do I know much about the inner workings. But what I do know is that the feedback has been beyond reproach, as evidenced by, you know, all the YouTube videos, the hearsay of fellow teammates of the Wizards, and so on. So talk to me, because it's evident that you've mastered your craft. You've put in the work, countless hours. You've shared the stage with the legends, and you know your instrument inside out. But one thing is playing. The other is designing, testing, manufacturing. So how has your experience and influences as a guitar player, you know, facilitate, or should I say educate, you know, Steve the builder? And for those out there looking to build their own brand, line, or whatever it is they want to do, but what do you also recommend for any type of prosperity, especially in a domain where you would think, right, by now, so many years of guitars, everything's been done to stand out? In other words, like, what has Steve Brown done with SBS to set a new standard that is so appealing? Because we both know in the business world that confused minds don't buy, Steve. And your guitars are selling, man. So now that you have that, what are you doing to demystify all those doubts from your clients and catering to their pockets, which is the most important thing?
Well, the SBS Steve Brown sound guitars are, again, getting back to what I told you about forming Trixter.
Yes.
The gimmick. How are we going to sell this product? And no matter what, when you're in the music business, it is the business of music. It's business. You have to sell. We're artists, yes. It's art, it's creative, it's songwriting. But at the end of the day, if you want to be successful, you have to make money and you have to sell records. So the
no
SBS
argument
guitar,
here, brother. No argument here.
Yep. It was, where am I going to fit in? Because Steve is not competing with EVH. SBS is not competing with Fender, Gibson, these bigger brands that have. But my partner and I, Jay Aben, who owns, you know, the main company, Guitar Fetish,
which I've met at a couple of the Wizard shows. Cool guys.
Yes, you have. Jay is a dear friend, Long Island guy, East Coast. And he was the one who came to me with this because he saw a hole for us to fill, if you will, a part of the marketplace that wasn't being serviced, which was guitars under $400 that are cool looking, incredible playing guitars, sound great. My SBS pickups that Jay and I
love
designed.
That purple too, man.
You know, look, at the end of the day, these guitars, this is a $379 guitar, hand relics, these beautiful paint jobs. I could go through all the stats, but there's no need to waste time. It was about servicing that part of the market. And look, it's no secret that we're living in very, very tough economic times. And how can you give value to guitar players and musicians, especially after the pandemic? And we all know that our business was hurt probably more than any other business out there.
Well, we had no business. Everything was cut. Everything was done.
Yeah, right. So it was about putting together the best possible guitar at a stellar price. And that's what we did. And, you know, now we're in, February of 2024. We have 3 completely separate lines. This is the Vintage Series line, which is the Relict, which is the ones you saw in the Wizard store. And now we have 3 different models of this. We have a new showroom series, which I don't even have because they're selling so well that the company didn't even send me one.
Bastards.
But those are your beautiful showroom glossy guitars with those
Nice.
great, like, Ferrari finishes, if you will.
Yeah.
And then we have an even more consumer friendly lower price guitar at $259, which is called the Custom Series, which is made of, a cheaper wood, poplar, which I love, which a lot of the, EVH fans and Eddie Van Halen fans know that Ed's 5150 Kramer from back in the day was made of poplar wood. So these guitars, and again, it's all inspired by the 80s. These are the type of guitars that I played all of my career, and I've added in certain elements that make it my own, and some modifications where these guitars have push-pull coil taps, so you get single coils out of this. It's got a thing called the treble bleed, where if you lower the volume, you don't lose the high-end articulation and tone. No stock guitar, even at $1,000, has all these features in it. So it's really about that. And
Well,
I could have.
let me stop you right there, because you mentioned something that's hugely valuable and important, and it's all relative in whatever business. I don't care what it is that you do. You came up a solution for a void that wasn't being met. And unfortunately, a lot of musicians, a lot of artists are creating and creating and creating, but they're cookie cutter creating. Instead of focusing on, well, how can I compete with this person? How can I compete with that? Find something that inspired you. Make the best, again, alluding to what you said before, make the best possible product that fills the void of answers, right? That society needs. Because I don't know anything. I don't know shit about guitars, but I got to tell you, you sold me. First of all, it's in my price point. You've got all the features of the more expensive Les Pauls and Gibson SGs and Fender Strats, so I can get it for a cheaper price. But it's the same type of quality, and it's endorsed by somebody who's done some epic shit. So it makes perfect sense from a marketing standpoint. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to address that, because it's so important about filling those voids. That's how you become successful.
Yes, well, that goes back to the gimmick. You always have to look, and Gene Simmons, Kiss and Sell. You always have to look where. Well, Manny. The one thing I love about Steve Brown's sound guitars is that Steve's gonna send me a free one.
That's it, dude. You nailed it.
I love Uncle Gene, man. But it's always about, no matter what you're doing, whatever product, you have to find your niche, and you also have to find a unique angle for how you're going to sell it, because there are hundreds of different guitar companies, but what makes ours different? We came out with the Relic thing, and it was, in the beginning, I got to tell you, when we first launched in last July of 2023, there were a lot of people who were like, "Oh man, we hate that fake Relic, blah blah blah."
You were telling me that on tour.
That was originally, so look, you can't please everybody, but we did it because it was, first off, this was my vision. That Jay, my partner, and I, we said, this is what we're going with. There's no company offering Relic guitars near this price range, so we're going to go with this. And it was always, we knew you're going to get the haters. You're going to get the people who go, "Oh, I want a solid. I want the solid. Why can't?" And we knew it was coming.
You're not going to please everybody, dude. Please. I don't even like everybody.
But we knew. And even in the beginning, though, this was the good far outweighed the bad. So the positive comments, the people who loved this guitar from day one, because I always liked it, like I said, man, I just always looked at it as, man, this was a guitar that was laying around in a warehouse since 1986. It's been on the floor, it's been dragged around, or it's been that guitar that some dude has had since 1984 playing bars for the last 40 years.
It's the stories,
so
brother. The stories sell.
Was it. Because it kind of goes along with me. I mean, makeup does a good thing for a 53-year-old guy like me. I'm kind of relicked here. But
but it's true though. It's the stories too, man. It's those stories that you visualize that that people can relate to, that people can really really feel.
And again, one of the most important things, and I think your listeners will really gravitate towards this and really enjoy it, is because this company would not have happened had it not been for the power of relationship. And this happened because of my friendship with Jay Abbin, who owns Guitar Fetish. And just so all the people know, these are mail order only. That's the other reason we're able to sell these guitars at such an insane price, because there's no middleman.
Sure.
These are not sold in music stores.
No overhead,
it's factory
man. Yeah.
direct. And that's the other thing. But
Sure.
Jay has been somebody that I've known since the 80s. Jay used to be the artist relations guy at Guild Guitars. He started Bedrock Amplifiers. He used to work for Aerosmith in the 80s. And I met him back when he was doing photography work like yourself for a bunch of different music companies. And he was doing stuff for Hartke Systems, Hartke bass amps. And that's how I met him. But we became friends right at the beginning when Guitar Fetish opened up, when the internet became available in all households. He was one of the first companies that you could order parts from if you wanted pickups, if you wanted knobs, if you wanted this. And I just do it back in the day. I would just send an email, hey, do you give artist discounts? And, and he came back to me, Jay, and he goes, well, everything's dirt cheap, but who are you? And I go, well, I'm Steve Brown. I'm from the band Trixter, and I play in Rubik's Cube, and I play in, Sugar Belly, this cover band. And he was like, dude, I know who you are. We met, 25 years ago. He goes, here's my number. And that's how all this came about, because we became friends, and we would see each other at NAMM shows. And then finally, 4.5 years ago on the Wizards of Winter tour, my first tour, we played down in Florida where Jay had just moved the factory. And we were driving back. He was driving us back to our gig. Some of the guys bought some guitars, and he turned to me and he goes, you know what? I want to do something with you. He had just done a very successful line with Earl Slick, the guitar player from David Bowie and John Lennon. And he said to me, and this wasn't even in my thought process. I didn't even think somebody at my success level would ever have their own guitar company and their own guitar line.
Yeah,
but he came to me and he said, I want to do something with you. I want a Van Halen style guitar with locking tremolos and, and cool paint jobs. And I was like, all right. And 4.5 years,
you don't have to twist my arm.
Later, here we are. So, that is the key. And the other thing is, be nice to everyone, because you never know who you're going to meet. So this is really that, because somebody who believed in me, and look, he believed in me, in my talents, in my, let's say, my personality, because that's the other thing. When you got to get out there, and you know this better than anybody, Manny, you got to sell it. And he knew that I was going to be the guy who would not be afraid to get in front of a camera and go and do that thing. Hey, this is Steve Brown, and you're playing SDS guitars. And if you play this guitar, it's going to make you look cooler than everybody else and sound better.
Dude, that's how you got on the show, man. We took the time to cultivate a relationship. Dude, you were so spot on with that, because it chaps my ass when I see people just destroy relationships by getting there late, by not showing up, by not returning a phone call. It's just the simple things that we don't even realize we sabotage. Just be kind to people, man. It doesn't cost you anything, and you could reap a lot of amazing, spontaneous rewards like yourself, man. So listen, last question of the show, dude. You've been epic, which is my signature question. What's your mojo, bro? Like, what makes you, I know you love what we do, but there's something special within all of us. Hence the reason why I title the podcast Mojo for Musicians, because there's always this underlying factor or this X factor within us that causes us to wake up every day, despite the hardship, despite the frustrating times, the opposing people, the naysayers, the haters. But there's always some good times. What makes Steve Brown wake up every day to write a new song, to produce a new album, to create a new line of guitars? Talk to me.
Well, first and foremost, again, it's the love of it. It's like breathing. I have to do this. It doesn't stop. Whether it's
your
designing new guitar lines, designing new swag, it never stops. But again, it's the love of it. But more importantly, I still believe the best is yet to come.
Nice.
Look, it's no secret. The first 50 years of my life has been a rock and roll fantasy. I've been blessed to be playing with my partner, PJ Farley, for 36 years.
I love PJ.
Since he was 14 and I'm 16, we've been friends and playing together and conquered the world, and, you know, been every part of this business, on top of the world, to the basement, to the parking garage, to the hot dog stand. But what
to
we
play in
always
Wembley
say
with Def Leppard, that's insane.
well, all of it.
Yeah,
But
man.
again, and I say this all the time, is I said the first 50 years was just a warm up, because I believe, and I believe this for you as well, Manny, that the best is yet to come. Because, you know, look, I don't know if it's a secret, but for a lot of people who don't know, I also lived a very hard party and rock and roll lifestyle. And I'm proud to say that I'm almost 5 years sober.
Good for you.
And since getting sober and getting off, you know, that lifestyle of living what I thought you had to do, everything has improved in my life 200%, 300%, 400%, not just 100. And more importantly, my abilities have gone through the roof. So with that question, I still believe that I'm going to get that #1 song. Probably not from me, but it's going to be from an artist that I work with. I'm hoping that, you know, with Corey Marks, these songs that we're writing, you know, I'm writing with also JT Harding, who's had 7 #1 country hits, and, you know, with Corey, and we're doing this stuff. So it might be with him, or it might be with Kobe Reese.
Dude, you're on the right track, man. So whatever you're doing, just keep doing that, man. But you got to plug in, you got to fake, because one quote I'm going to leave you with, it, which really, really hit home when I heard it. Actually, I heard it about a week ago. If there's enough faith in your future, that's enough impetus to what you need to do in the present. And I love that quote, because it's true. Exactly what you're saying. You believe in the future, man. So that's your drive right now. And I have more than enough confidence in you that you're going to achieve it and realize that dream sooner than you think, man. And I have to agree. I concur. I'm a baby still, brother. Let's do it. Hey, who knows? Maybe we can collaborate on something. We get a #1 for both of us. What do you say?
You never know, but
No,
that, you know, that's it really. And at the end of the day, it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. It's the love.
Yeah.
And what I tell everybody, and for everybody listening out there, if you love what you do and you put all your passion, everything you have into it, you're going to win.
Yeah.
But the other one, let me just leave you with this.
Please.
The other thing is that I tell people this: you have to also be like an octopus. The more tentacles and the more things that you have going, you will have a better chance at success. Because a lot of times people get so focused and so hyper driven on one thing. I want to be a rock star. I want to be a songwriter, that they lose perspective on all the other things. And look, let's be real here. I have to sometimes be a hard truth person to people and say, look, dude, I got to be honest with you. I don't think this is ever going to happen for you, that you are going to be that rock star that you want to be. But that doesn't mean you can't be a famous guitar tech, or a famous engineer producer, or a famous graphic artist, or a video director. 100%. You know, because you do it all.
Well, that's the book. My book, it was a best-selling book, not to cut you off, Soul You Gotta Breathe. It's exactly about that, man. What you think has come to a screeching halt, sometimes shit is not supposed to work out. It's supposed to be a blessing in disguise for you. But our ego will not let us go, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the other thing I try to tell everybody in this business, especially, where let's focus on music. There are so many aspects where you can go, and nothing bothers me more than to see starving musicians when there are ways for all musicians to constantly make money. And that is one of the biggest lessons I think that I could share with everybody, that whether you're playing gigs, teach, do everything you can, learn graphic design, learn photography, learn video making, learn Pro Tools, learn to be able to do everything, because you can make a little bit of money from all these things and pay your bills.
World,
when you pay your bills, doing what you love to do, you've won the game.
Yeah, man. I learned that from Steve Jobs too, bro. You know, if you don't do what you love, the element of quitting will always be nudging at you every single day. And that's pretty deep, bro. Listen, Steve, I
sure.
love you, bro. Thank you so much for sharing your time,
Likewise.
your wisdom, your journeys. You dropped some incredible nuggets of knowledge, bro. And I can't appreciate you more. Now, listen, obviously you got a lot going on, but this is your time. I'm showcasing you. Anything you want to plug, how do people find you, all that. Go.
Just hit me up on social media. I'm on all the platforms. Steve Brown Rocks, Trixter, SBS Guitars, and I'm easy to find. And thank each and every one of you for everything that you've done. And, keep the faith and enjoy every moment.
Absolutely, brother. Truer words have never been spoken. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only, my dear friend, my fellow wizard, Steve Brown. Thanks for your time, brother. We got to do this again when you get your number one, which could be sooner than we both thought, brother.
Thank you, Manny. Love you, dude.
All right, brother. Back at you, man. Talk soon.
This has been a Mojo for Musicians podcast. If you're a musician, industry professional, or a voice with a powerful message and wanting to share your mojo and stories of success with our listeners, or simply share some feedback on today's episode, we'd love to hear from you. So send us an email at info@mannycabo.com. As always, much love and peace. Live to inspire. Thanks for listening.